Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is me again, Gold and Blue Dude. Yes, I don't stop every single day. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. This is what I do. College football videos every single day and some college basketball videos, especially when March Madness rolls around. Go ahead and check out my Patreon page. We have a wider selection over there. And don't forget about my PayPal contest. The person with the highest donation at the end of this month wins a brand new 42-inch Roku Smart TV worth $300. Yes, another beautiful, magnificent car video. Schedule was a little hectic today. This is when I can fit it in. On this video, I want to talk about, conference realignment again. I want to talk about what happened and what should have happened. This video idea was by subscriber DRGAT. I think some of these conferences made a mistake. Some did well, some did bad. First up, the SEC. They added Oklahoma and Texas. That's actually really, really good. So the SEC will look like this: Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. On over to the Big 12. Yes, they did lose Texas and Oklahoma, and that was a big blow. However, they did add BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. That's not bad. So here's what the Big 12 will look like: Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, and West Virginia. It's not a bad looking conference. The AAC, yes, they did lose Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, but they added Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UTSA. So here's what the AAC will look like: East Carolina, Tulsa, SMU, Memphis, Navy, Tulane, South Florida, Temple, Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UTSA. On to the Sun Belt. They didn't lose anybody, but they added Marshall, Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and James Madison, bringing up an FCS. I hear you. So here's what the Sun Belt will look like: Appalachian State, Georgia State, Coastal Carolina, Troy, Georgia Southern, Louisiana, Texas State, UL Monroe, South Alabama, Arkansas State, Marshall, Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and James Madison. Now for Conference USA. My gosh, they got picked apart. And they added Jacksonville State, Liberty, New Mexico State, and Sam Houston State. What a crappy looking conference. Here's what they look like: Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, FIU, UTEP, Louisiana Tech, Jacksonville State, Liberty, New Mexico State, and Sam Houston State. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give a grade to each conference, whether they were involved in this or not, what they did, and what they should have done. First off, the SEC. I give them an A+. I wouldn't change anything. They went after the two biggest names, Oklahoma and Texas, got them, and they're going to look like the best conference in the nation. They probably already are, but this will leave no doubt. Now, for the Big 12, I give them an A. Yes, they lost Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, but, what were they going to do? Texas and Oklahoma had made up their mind. And they did add BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, probably the biggest names remaining, unless they went after another Power 5 conference, which is what I'm about to enlighten you about. They should have went after USC and UCLA. I think that would have beefed up a potential West Division, and it would have helped to make up even more losses of Texas and Oklahoma. And I think trying to bring back Colorado and Nebraska would have been a big-time move as well. I think Nebraska and Colorado belong in the Big 12. So that's the only gripe that I have about the Big 12, but all in all, I think they did a good job. On to the Pac-12, C+. Well, they didn't lose anybody, but they didn't gain anybody either. I think they could have gone after any combination of any of these teams: Oklahoma State, Kansas, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, Iowa State. I think that would have spread the Pac-12's footprint, and it would have taken advantage of a wounded Big 12. The Big 12 looked like it was on its last legs, but boom, they added teams. No more teams were taken away from them, and it looks like they're going to survive, maybe even thrive. On to the Big 10. I give them a solid B. They didn't gain any, but they didn't lose any either. However, I do think they could have went after Oklahoma State, Kansas, Kansas State, or Iowa State, or any combination of those four. I think that would have helped with their footprint as well, and those would have been decent brands. On to the ACC. I think they get a B as well. They didn't gain any, but they didn't lose any either. And they're still trying to lock down Notre Dame and West Virginia. I do think the ACC could have gone after UCF, Cincinnati, Memphis, Appalachian State, and Louisiana, or any combination of those teams, spread their footprint and ensure the longevity of the ACC. Now, on to the MAC. I give them an A-. They didn't lose any, they didn't gain any. I really don't know who I would have added. Maybe there's a few names out there, but they're on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to the group of 5 conferences, but they survived. On to the AAC. I give them a B+. They did lose Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF, but it was to a Power 5. What were they going to do? I think they should have added Appalachian State and Louisiana with the other additions, or in place of North Texas and Rice along with the other additions. In other words, I think Appalachian State and Louisiana are stronger brands than North Texas and Rice. But really, that's my only gripe. They did pick Conference USA apart. On to the Mountain West. I give them a B. They didn't lose any. They didn't gain any. But I think they should have gone after UTSA, UTEP, Rice, and North Texas, or any combination of the four to expand their footprint and maybe jump up a spot on the totem pole of the Group of 5 conferences. On to the Sun Belt. I give them a solid A. They didn't lose any, and they gained Marshall, Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and James Madison, bringing up the FCS. That's commendable. But I do think they should have went after Liberty and Army along with those additions, or in place of James Madison and Old Dominion. But I get it. Old Dominion bringing in a new stadium. It's going to look great. But I really like the brands of Liberty and especially Army. That would have been a great addition right there. And finally, lowly Conference USA. I was tempted to give them an F, but they still exist. So I'm going to give them a D. Conference USA lost 9 members. 9 members. That is well over half. They did gain Jacksonville State, Liberty. That was a good get right there. New Mexico State, I mean way out there, and Sam Houston State. Now, personally, I think Conference USA should have tried to pick the MAC apart. I think the MAC is the lowest on the totem pole, but after conference realignment, it might be Conference USA that's lowest on the totem pole. And they could have helped themselves if they would have picked the MAC apart. It would have helped them in both scenarios, boosted them up, knocked the MAC down. They could have gone after any combination of these teams. Kent State, Miami of Ohio, Bowling Green, Akron, Northern Illinois, Toledo, and Ball State. I will say that Buffalo, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, and Western Michigan are a little out of the range of Conference USA. I mean, they're still doable, but I still like those other teams more. It would make more sense. It would have definitely knocked the MAC down. They would have lost a ton of members, or at least several members. And by doing that, you would automatically boost yourself up. But as is, yeah, after this conference realignment, I would have Conference USA on the bottom of the totem pole. In fact, here's how I would rank the conferences after realignment. Number 1, of course, the SEC. After the SEC, I'll go Big Ten. After the Big Ten, the ACC. After the ACC, the Big 12, and then after the Big 12, the Pac-12. In the Group of 5, I would have the AAC at number 1. I know they lost 3 big brands, but I mean, they picked Conference USA apart. I think they did well. I think they're going to be the strongest Group of 5 conference still. After them, I'm going to go with the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt has been climbing. They didn't lose anybody. They gained 4 members. So I'm actually going to bump them up a spot over the Mountain West. So right behind the Sun Belt is the Mountain West. I think they're good, but they didn't do anything to increase their value. Right under the Mountain West, the MAC. They didn't gain anybody, but they didn't lose anybody either. And then, of course, at the very bottom, Conference USA. My gosh, how is that a conference? That is worse than some of the FCS conferences that I see out there. My gosh. Anyways, y'all let me know in the comments section what teams each conferences should have went after and where you would rank the Power 5 conferences and the Group of 5 conferences. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next show.